it's a little problematic for me, which brings me to the last thing, and I'm kind of taking a long time. So this was, I went to school in a different era from anyone who's in school right now. When we studied art history at BYU, the spiral jetty was like World War II and Cold War was in history, where you're like running late, you got to make up, you got to like get through 50 years in the last week. So you just flip through the pages in the back of the Jansen art history book, on the last page or whatever, and discuss it. And in fact, it only really existed in the book because it had been underwater. I graduated in 1990. It had been underwater since right after the build. So I mean, yeah, it was a film, but for like a whole generation of people, it was also just a concept and documentation was all it was. So in 1994, when the Jetty first reappeared, an artist friend who had actually gone here told me about it. And so I was on summer break from business school, and I hopped in my sister's car, drove it out. The road was horrible. It was a little Honda Accord, and I totally thrashed it going to see this, and it was just barely out of the water, just a few rocks. So it was like a ghost of the Jetty. And then, of course, it came back out in 2002, and now it's like, why am I even talking about it? Because everybody knows about the Jetty. It's like, after like, I don't know, it's like the second biggest thing in Utah. I don't know. There's that Frank Gehry thing in Lehigh, that's been pretty big, so, So there's three big deals, But I latched onto this as sort of the, because I'd gone to school in Utah, and now I was in sort of college in the art world. This was like our Utah, this was it. I was like, so I have like very protective feelings about the Jetty. And having been sort of one of the first ones to go when it was kind of hard and exotic and weird and like nobody believed you that it was there. And as late as like 2002, there are people writing in our forum that, that they'd gone and tried to find it and couldn't find it, and it just exists as a phantom, and you're like, what are you talking about? There's a map. You were like 60 feet away from it. So I got in a huge fight with that guy over that. But anyway, now, of course, there's, the giant, like the state has put up beautiful signs that tell you right where it is. And, a couple, in 2005, during Smithson exhibition, retrospective, Nancy Holt, Smithson's widow and the executor of the estate, talked about how, yeah, she knew that Bob was actually really okay with the idea of rebuilding and putting some more rocks on there because they didn't want it to erode. And I know Monty's actually teaching something about the spiral jetty like next week, isn't it? When is it? Yeah. Yeah. Well, I want to. Yeah,
I'm finish the hotel Palenque lecture.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Finish that.
Yeah, pass a bottle around for that one. Do it at night, get some like cookies and stuff. But so yeah, you can correct. As soon as I'm gone, you can straighten everybody out. But the idea of the whole Smithson, his interest was entropy, and seeing what happens if you just let something go, and the conscious act of not doing something, and not preserving something, and the whole concept of entropy was sort of just shot through his work everywhere. And here Nancy Holt was at a Whitney function, a Whitney panel at the retrospective, talking about how they were going to regrade the Amarillo ramp because it started to get some grass on the top and it's a little round now. And that, actually, when the DIA proposed, the study about what to do with the jetty, it made the front page of the Times. I didn't write the article, but it made the front page of the Times that maybe they were going to restore the jetty. And now here Nancy Holt was saying, yeah, sure, well, Bob was really up with that. He was down with that, that's no problem. And so it really got, and then the state went in last year, was it 2 years ago now? 2 springs ago, when they went in last year and cleared, there's a bunch of debris, if you've ever been there, there's like a mobile home and like a burnout truck and junk. And it was like this sort of weird industrial wasteland in the middle of nowhere, which is why Smithson put the thing there. Because there's an oil jetty over here and some weird rusted oil derricks over here. The state went in and, cleaned it up. Now it's getting a lot more attention, and they were really kind of ashamed with how it was looking, I guess. So they kind of prettied it up a bit and cleaned up all that trash and took out like 18 truckloads of garbage. But it turns out they didn't talk to or Nancy Holt and Medea both say that they had no involvement at all in this cleanup. I don't know. I mean, I guess. But, you know, it made me wonder what really is entropy and what's this idea, and after you're dead, you know, what happens to your work? And maybe, this is the spiral doily, which was from this crochet that was on a little pink lake. And it was at the Sinclair station there in Corrie. You know, where you stop off for corn dogs, something like that. There's a little corner in the back that has like crochet like things, like tissue box covers, and then the last time I went out there were these. And so I'm like, maybe this is entropy. Maybe just sort of letting, you know, go whole hog, you know, and basically, you know, turn it into, you know, Roselle Point. Read that. This Thanksgiving Coins website. You don't all recognize that logo? You mean you don't go out for the Christmas lights? Well, crowd from Utah County knows what I'm talking about. But anyway, so and it's you know, playing your perfect Jetty way today. You know, that maybe this is entropy, and maybe, you know, trying to fence off the Jetty and not let anything happen to it is this Herculean effort that runs counter to what, you know, what the natural arc for this work is. And maybe you should go ahead and just make sure that it's a great, sweet setup out there with, you know, a lot of tables with good views of the Jetty at sunset. And, you know, the shops at Roselle Point will be, you know, one more art pilgrimage site. I don't know. But the thing that I find is that basically, like, money and popularity and all this stuff inevitably figures back in to what, to how people interact with art, a piece of art, a work of art. And after you're dead and your work is, you know, you're wondering about your legacy and, gee, what's going to happen? It doesn't matter, because, you know, it could just as easily be that the person that you trusted the most to guard the legacy and who's taken it on as her lifelong mission may want to, you know, build a spa at Jetty. I don't know. But it's, I don't know. I guess maybe this is really depressing anyone who wants to make art rather than trying to cheer them up about it. But my sense is that, like, you know it's going to happen. So, you know, why not just either plan for it or, you know, just don't worry about it. And with that notion, I decided to plan for it. So, go. These are certificates of authenticity. I am declaring right now that this lecture is a work of art, and it's an edition of 100. So everybody might feel free to take one of these certificates with you, and it's you know, a little something you get. I only have like one spiral doily, so I can't give you those. But you know, if anybody, you know, 100 years from now, you know, one of your relatives finds this in a drawer and wants to sell it to the Guggenheim, go right ahead. So anyway, you know, that's all I've got right now. You know, but I guess I'm an artist now. I just made a multiple. So anyway, that's it. Thanks. Does anyone have any? Make sure you pick up your certificate on the way out. Or, yeah, I signed it, so you might not throw it away for a couple days. You never know. You could use the other side for something.
Yeah. Thanks for the fun talk. Did you develop this website further? I mean, did those actually click through anywhere?
No, that was me with Photoshop last night.
Okay.
Yeah. No, no. So.
Possibilities.
Yeah, you know, I'm suddenly now thinking, should you let it, or should I just go out and try and make a deal with one of those ranchers and just make sure I get a good Jetty front piece of property? You know, just, who cares? Go for it, you know? Just, you know, you just try and preserve the land and whatnot, and you just let it go, you know, go roll with it. So, got a realtor, we're going up tomorrow.